Hey Queens, welcome or welcome back to my channel. One of my favourite videos to watch sort of around December and January are Goodreads Choice Award vlogs. I'm just obsessed with them, I love them. And I was thinking, how can I do a vlog of my own, because I definitely cannot read a whole category like a lot of people do. I'm not a fast enough reader for that. There's no categories that I've already read, for example half of, anything like that. I probably couldn't even do reading the top 10 in a short amount of time. So I was trying to think like what video could I do, and then I thought it would be a fun idea to have a look at what books from the Goodreads Choice Awards I already own and already have on my physical TBR, as it is one of my goals to be reducing my physical TBR. That's actually another thing that contributes to me not wanting to read an entire category, because that would involve purchasing a lot of new books and I want to be getting my physical TBR down. So I thought it'd be fun to do it this way, and I'm likely not going to be able to read every single book that's on my physical TBR, but I'm gonna try and get through as many as I can. Full disclosure, I am filming this having already started reading the books for this vlog, so I do know what I've picked for some of them. But I'm gonna go through the whole categories and sort of talk through what I do and don't have. I'm not gonna like discuss my thoughts or anything on the categories, because I did already do that in my reaction to the nominees. So I've got my iPad here to sort of go through all the categories. I have signed out so that you can't see which ones I've read already for the video. That's why none of them are marked with want to read or currently reading or read or anything like that. Okay, so I've got the Goodreads Choice Award page up, and we're going to start off with fiction. I'm pretty sure I don't have any of the fiction nominees, but I'm going to go through each category anyway, just in case I am missing something. Yeah, not got any of these. On to historical fiction, which again I think is a category I've not got any of. There are some I'm interested in them, but just none that I have purchased already. Mystery thriller, I definitely have some. I do own the Kindle edition of The God of the Woods, because it was the monthly pick for a book club I'm in, but I never read it. But I'm going to try and go physical books. I do have We Solve Murders. I've got How to Solve Your Own Murder as well, so that's another option. Romance is probably where I'll have the most options. Yep, so I've got Funny Story. I do have Just for the Summer, but I am not gonna read that one purely because I've not read Yours Truly yet. I already know I'm not gonna get through all of the books that are options here, so I want to avoid having to read books that aren't actually nominees for this video anyway. I do have Bride. I have Wild Love, but similarly I don't want to start that series until I finish Chestnut Springs, so that isn't going to be one of the options. I do have Not in Love and Swift and Saddled, and that's it for the romance category. I think I have a couple romanticies as well. Yeah, so I've got Quicksilver, I've got When the Moon Hatched, we have A Fate Inked in Blood, and A Dark and Drowning Tide. So again, they're all options. I am going to try and like vary genre as well. I'm going to try and not just read loads of romance or whatever. Fantasy, I'm not sure if I'll have any, it depends. Oh, Voyage of the Damned, I forgot that's in fantasy, so I do have that one. Sci-fi, I have Ministry of Time. And that's the only sci-fi. Horror, I think I do have one, because I'm pretty sure Stephen Graham Jones, yeah. So I've got The Eyes of the Best Part, and I've got I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones, and I think that is it for those. Yeah, for debut I have The Ministry of Time, Voyage of the Damned, The Eyes of the Best Part. I think it's all ones that I've already mentioned for other categories. Yeah, so I will hopefully try and read one of those, because then I'm reading something that's in multiple categories. For audiobook I think it's the same. I think it's all stuff that I have in other categories as well. So yeah, we've got Funny Story, Just for the Summer, We Solve Murders. They're all ones I have in other categories. And same thing with debut, I'll try and read at least one of those so that I'm reading something that's in multiple categories. Young adult fantasy, I'm not sure if I will have any. No. Oh, no, I do. I have Of Jade and Dragons. Young adult fiction, I've got The Reappearance of Rachel Price, Betting on You. That's it for that one. Non-fiction, I don't think I have any of the non-fiction. There are definitely a couple I'm interested in. I'm interested in Disney High and one for sure. don't own them yet, so not going to be an option. Memoir, we've got none of them, I don't think. No. I don't think I'll have any of the last few categories now. History and biography. No, I don't think so. Yeah. So these are all my options. It's actually quite a large stack. I'm struggling to hold this up right now. But yeah, I think that's all of them. I think you can see all of them there. I'm going to put these down before I knock myself out. It's a nice mix of fantasy, romance, romantasy, mystery thriller. I've got a couple of young adults in there. Yeah, next time you see me will be back in time when I started Quicksilver. I am about 2/3 into Quicksilver. I'm just over 400 pages and I am loving it. I'm loving it! The only other romantasy I have ever read is ACOTAR, and so that's sort of all I really have to go off in terms of what I expect from fantasy, from romantasy, and what my thoughts are towards romantasy. But this is like solidifying that it is a genre that I enjoy. I am having so much fun. One of the things like I'm really enjoying is seeing how seeing a different person's take on Fae, because like I said, the only romantasy I've read is ACOTAR, and not that I thought that Fae would be the same in every book ever, but it's easy to forget that like, oh no, actually yeah, people can have their own things. They might make their own things up or combine different legends, because there's so many different myths and legends surrounding all kinds of mythical creatures. There can be lots of different combinations, so I'm really enjoying that. I'm definitely enjoying sort of the characteristics that Callie has brought into her interpretation of Fae. Yeah, so I'll give you a quick sort of summary because I just realised I haven't done that yet. We follow Ceres, who is human, and she lives in sort of a, not sort of post-apocalyptic, but like in her realm, world, country, I don't know. They have very low resources and they're sort of separated into wards, and she is from the poorest ward. She gets caught stealing a piece of armour from one of the guardians, and she gets sent to the palace for punishment, where she is essentially sentenced to death. But she accidentally opens a gateway to the Fae realm that has been closed for, I think, thousands of years. Once she is in Avelia, which is the name of the Fae realm, she finds out that only alchemists can open the gateways, and therefore she is tasked with figuring out how to get them to stay open permanently, as, like I say, they have been closed for thousands of years, and it is assumed that she must be an alchemist of some sort somehow, even though she's human, because of the fact that she was able to open a gateway. That is how we come across Kingfisher, who is tasked with helping her in this mission, but he has actually been in exile for over 100 years, and this has sort of caused him to be a lot darker, a lot more unfriendly, shall we say, than he supposedly once was. I did try listening to the audiobook for this because I think it was Steph from Steph Loves. I think she read it on audio and she sort of talks about how much she enjoyed it because it's a dual narration. But I just couldn't get into it through the audio. Like, I was tandem reading because I can't listen to audio books on their own anyway. The style of the acting, and like, this is no shade to the narrators, it works for some people, it just doesn't work for me. The style of the narration felt kind of like video gamey, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I don't know how else to explain it, but I just wasn't enjoying it that way, so I did switch to reading it physically. But like I say, if you are considering picking this up, I'd still give the audiobook a go if that's something you're into, because like I say, Steph really loved reading it in that format. Definitely don't take my word for I didn't like it, so it must be a terrible audiobook. It's definitely not, it just wasn't for me. But yeah, I am really enjoying this. It's reminding me what I loved so much reading ACOTAR. I just do enjoy this world. I know a lot of people sort of look down on romantasy and can't take it seriously, and I get it. There is definitely often some very cringy lines in romantasy, but I eat it up. I love it. I love the worlds and the higher stakes, but still getting that bit of romance, because I am a romance girly at heart. I don't know how long this series is going to span, but I hope it's a good few books, because I can really see like the found family elements are going to be a big part of this. Already we've got the general, who is sort of Kingfisher's best friend essentially, and he is so sweet. And we've got another character who at the moment hasn't been in the book for a while for reasons, but I can definitely see them coming back and being part of this found family. I assume we're going to build up at some point to a battle between the Fey realm and where Ceres is originally from, just because her queen sucks, and I'm excited to see how all that plays out. Reading books like this makes me think maybe I'm not primarily a romance reader, because like I do really enjoy the higher stakes, the higher tension, but I'm such a romance girly at heart. I think I do need there to at least be a subplot of romance. We'll see. Hopefully this year I can expand my reading horizons and find out that I can read fantasy without romance in it. I have finished Quicksilver. It's 5 stars. It's 5 stars. I loved this so much. I can't remember what I said in my last update, so I do apologise if I repeat anything. But yeah, I really loved this. I loved Callie Hart's take on Faye. I don't know how real that is. Obviously, I'm not well versed on typical Fae lore, so I don't know what elements are typical standard of Fae lore and what something she's personally decided to add to it. Obviously everyone has their own take on it, but I enjoyed her version of Fae. If I remember rightly, where I think I was around the 400 page mark in my check-in. After that point it really picked up in terms of action, and a lot happened, a lot went down. I really enjoyed how that played out, and where we left off at the end I think is a great launching point for the second book. I've got ideas of where I think we're going, a couple different pathways of things that I think could be part of the overarching plot of the next book, not in terms of spoilers, but in terms of like what would be in the synopsis. So I am very excited for the next book. It doesn't come out till like I think October or November, so I've got a long time to wait, and I'll probably have forgotten it by then. Nothing against the book, I just have a shocking memory. But I really did enjoy this. I would highly recommend it to anyone who enjoys romantasy. And yeah, I don't really have much to say because spoilers. I don't want this to be a spoiler vlog. Kingfisher has my heart. I love him. I just loved it. I really loved it. I'm glad I decided to do this video so that I could get to it straight away after buying it, straight away after hearing all the hype. It's exciting being at the start of a series, at the start of a hype of series. I can see this becoming a huge, really big series. It feels exciting to be at the start of that. I don't think I've been at the start of popularity of a series before. I am actually going to a book club for this. A Waterstones near me does a romance book club, and this is their pick for January. I didn't know that when I read it, but I'm so excited to get to talk to people in person about this. I just loved it. How am I supposed to wait a whole 9 or 10 months for the second book to come out? I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Yeah, I think the next book I'm gonna pick up is Funny Story. Of the Emily Henrys I have yet to read, it's probably the one that interests me most, so getting to read it for this video is super exciting, and it's just calling my name, so that is going to be the next one that I start. I have done the calculations, and I know I'm not going to physically be able to read every single book that I mentioned at the start of this video in time for this video, because I would have to read like 290 pages a day, which some days is possible definitely, but it's just not feasible for me to keep up for most of the month. I'm about halfway through Funny Story, and this might be my favourite Emily Henry so far. I've read Beach Read and Happy Place. This is the plot I was most excited for of all the Emily Henry books. So we've got Daphne, who was engaged to someone called Peter, and he goes out on his bachelor party and comes back and is like, psych, I'm not marrying you, I'm in love with my best friend, and she admitted to me tonight that she is in love with me, so we're gonna get together, bye, you have a week to move out, we're gonna go on holiday. So Daphne moves in with the ex of her now ex-fiance's new girlfriend, if that makes any sense. And Daphne and Miles don't really sort of talk to each other until they get invited to Peter and Petra's wedding. Peter calls Daphne to sort of act like the better person and be all like, you don't have to come, blah blah blah, I know you're so sad and alone, boo-hoo. Like, so patronising, so condescending. And she just blurts out that she's actually going with her boyfriend, and he's like, you didn't reply as a +1, you didn't RSVP with a +1. And she's like, oh, that's because he has an invite of his own. And he's like, you can't mean that you're with Miles. And she's like, yep, bye. She's grappling with the fact that she's told him that she's now seeing Miles, and she cannot, like, absolutely cannot admit to that being a lie, because that would be too embarrassing. Miles finds this hilarious. They decide, fuck it, we'll go to the wedding together. So it's sort of fake dating, but like, the fake dating isn't going to happen until the wedding, but they're just naturally hanging out together more. And there's a couple instances that lead them to do something a little more coupley prior to the wedding, but they're not full on fake dating at this point. I'm really enjoying it. I'm a sucker for in a romance when one of the main characters has like a horrible ex. Not in the sense of like liking seeing the main characters be treated that way, but in the reaction of the partners. So like, they're very much coming to this realization, particularly Daphne, that she changed a lot about her life and herself for Peter, and she actually doesn't want to live like that anymore. And Miles is very much sort of helping her and encouraging her to do all the things that she quote unquote couldn't do in her past relationship. I have a bone to pick with Miss Henry. I'm a lover of Crocs. I am a Crocs wearer. I am a Crocs wearer, and at one point Daphne's friend comes over to pick her up and she goes into Miles's room. They see like a large amount of Crocs, and she says, nurse, service worker, or run-of-the-mill weirdo. And I take offence to that, Emily Henry, because I am not a nurse or a service worker. And I own 2 pairs of Crocs, and I love my Crocs. They're comfy, they're easy. Run-of-the-mill weirdo? Miss Henry! Crocs are coming back. Crocs have been coming back. Like, I get a couple years ago, people didn't like Crocs anymore. Crocs were big when I was a child, then we stopped wearing them, but the past few years, we've been wearing them again. During the time this was published, this is your most recent book. During the time this was published, Crocs have become a good thing again. Oh, the lighting went funky there. I don't appreciate being called a run-of-the-mill weirdo. Apart from that, I am loving it. I do think I'm going to finish it tonight. I've got roughly like 175 pages maybe. Yeah. So I have finished Funny Story, and it's another 5 stars. It's another 5 stars. Second book of the year. Second 5 stars of the year. We're going to keep this good energy. We're going to keep this good energy. This is my favourite Emily Henry. Obviously, I said that synopsis-wise, this is the one that appealed to me most, and it delivered. I loved this so much. Miles, I love you. He is so sweet and just so... I just love him so much. The trauma he has and the baggage he has that he brings to relationships, even though, like, if you look in the grand scheme of things, it's a very common issue to be bringing to relationships. It's a very common trauma to have. The way it's written felt so new and refreshing. It felt so different to anything I've read before featuring that particular baggage, and I just loved it. I loved it. You know, we had characters reflecting on their own behaviour. Mind blowing, I know. Realising things they're doing wrong. Like, Daphne does to her best friend what she gets annoyed at so many people for doing, and she could have really taken the excuse route. I think the reason she got herself in that situation, at least part of it, is a very, very valid reason. If my friend said, hey, this is why this happened, I'd be like, okay, fair enough, you were going through a lot. But she doesn't even use that. Like, she mentions it once, but after that she's like, no, I just need to prove to you and show to you that I care about you as a friend and that I'm not going to do that again. And her friend is like, yeah, and I probably overreacted because of previous situations, but you're not my ex. and so I need to handle it better. Like, everyone just recognising their own problematic traits and working to fix them. We love. So far I've not had a bad Emily Henry. So I am still excited to finish her backlog. And it just feels so nice to have that 5-star feeling again, because I don't think I gave many 5 stars out last year at all. So to start off the year with 2 5 stars, maybe people know what they're talking about in the Goodreads Choice Awards. I mean, I did say in my Goodreads Choice Awards reaction video that I do want someone other than Emily Henry to win for once, and that it's nothing against her. I just would like it to not be so predictable, would like it to change up every so often, would like other people to have a shot, but I can see why this one loved it. Also, it's something that I meant to mention in my last checkup but didn't. It's like, so the chapter titles, like, because obviously where we start, Daphne like has just been broken up with, like her whole life has basically crashed down around her. She's like counting down until she can leave. Like the first chapter I think is like 108 days until I can leave. And I was like, I bet this is going to change. And it did. Like throughout the book it became just 108 days till the readathon, and then 108 days until I could leave if I still want to. However many days till the readathon, and then it just changed to the number of days. Like I just love it, because it's like little things like that. Like you could just have no titles in the chapter, right? Just have the dates. But that little tidbit as well, it just shows how she's progressing in her thought, because even though it's obvious the attraction there and whatever, it shows how sort of she's processing the development of the relationship. I love this. On top of finishing Funny Story, I have also started We Solve Murders by Richard Osman. This is my first Richard Osman. I was umming and ahhing for a while on whether I should wait until I've read the Thursday Murder Club to read this, even though they're not connected. I was just like, should that be the way I'm introduced to him? Because obviously that is his really popular series, the series that got him big. But obviously when I decided to do this video, I knew this was going to be one of my options, and I just sort of thought, I don't know how long it's going to be until I get round to Thursday Murder Club. Currently this is the only book I have to read to be up to date in this series, so it's less intimidating. And I'm so glad that I didn't put off this until I finished Thursday Murder Club. I'm already loving it. I'm only about a third in, I think. I'm on page 159. I'm loving his writing style. It's so for me. It's fast paced, the chapters are nice and short, and there are a lot of characters, and I could see how you could find it hard to follow, but I'm not finding that at all. It's so clear within a couple sentences whose perspective we're from. Everyone has different tones. I'm really enjoying all the relationships. The relationship between Amy, who is the daughter-in-law, and Steve, who is the father-in-law. My heart! Like, this isn't a spoiler. Very early on, Steve says that every time they get off the phone, he cries and he doesn't know why, but he's just accepted it. My heart! I love this. I can also see how Richard Osman as a whole could be not it for the non-Brits, because in this, like, we're not even fully in England, and there are a lot of British references, both with like pop culture, but also in this there's a lot of motorway talk. Personally, like, some of them are ones that I know, some aren't, but like I still sort of get like what's going on, and they're talking about it in relation to like, oh well, this one always has traffic, this one always has roadworks, like if you have to take this route then you'll be stuck for it. Like, the way it's spoken about, I can imagine that being very frustrating if you have no idea where these roads and motorways are and like what they're typically like. Like, I imagine if I was reading this and it was like American freeway names, it wouldn't personally put me off, but it would go straight over my head. The joke wouldn't hit and it would feel a bit pointless and sort of like stupid to have in there because I don't understand, I'm not in on the joke. So I could get how this can feel too British for non-Brits. Like, I've heard that said before about Thursday Murder Club, and reading this where it's not even fully set there, I can see how that could be a criticism. But for me, that's just something that makes me love it even more, and it's making me so much more excited to read Thursday Murder Club because I can only imagine that's heightened in there. But yeah, and I'm already like, there are bits in this I'm like, I could so picture this in a film. You know, we've got the film rights to Thursday Murder Club already. I'm sure that film rights won't be too far along for this, because I could so imagine this being a film. I've not even spoken about what this is about. We are following Amy, who is a private security bodyguard type person. Like, she works for a security company. She's currently on assignment protecting a famous author. And then we have Steve, who is her father-in-law, who is back at home, and he is a retired cop. There's been a couple murders mentioned and shenanigans going on around that. Amy doesn't really know who she can trust, and so she turns to Steve to help her, and sort of that's the point I've got to. Steve is just coming out to America to help her. But yeah, I'm loving the writing style, I'm loving the tone, I'm loving everything about it pretty much. I finished We Solve Murders. It's another 5-star, guys. It's another 5 stars. This streak is ending here. I don't believe that I can pick another 5-star as my next read, but oh my god, I loved it. Richard Osman's writing, for me, I ate it all up. I don't know how he is capable of writing such short chapters with so many points of view and keep me interested. And like, every time there was a reveal, like the character would realise something, but then we'd switch to someone else's point of view before we actually find out the reveal. And whilst I know that he's doing that because he doesn't want to reveal that information to the reader yet, it doesn't feel like that at all. It feels like the natural flow of the story. I don't understand how he does it. I'm so excited to read Thursday Murder Club after reading this. I just loved it all. I loved everything. I love how it wrapped it up. I loved his character work, everything. Like the fact that at one point that we're having a really important moment. I can't remember exactly what's happening, but a lot of important things are going down. Big discoveries happening, big reveals happening. We need to be moving fast to, one, catch the person who's behind everything, but also to make sure that they don't succeed in trying to have Amy killed. And Steve's just sat there thinking about the quiz. It is so true to his, like, I have such a clear picture of who these characters are, and it's so true to Steve's character. Like the whole book, he's like, yeah, but I'm going to be home in time for the quiz on Wednesday, right? I better be home in time for the pub quiz. The whole book. And then they actually do briefly go back to England and they have the pub quiz, and he's like, right, sit down everyone, we're not talking about what's going on. We're sitting here for 90 minutes, longer if there's a tiebreaker, and we're participating in the pub quiz. And then afterwards, everything that is being revealed, everything that's going on, you know, you're thinking there's more important things to be talking about right now, Steve. And in his head, he's just thinking, lost a point here. Oh, I knew it was this, but I just put this down instead. I could have got a point there. Like, that is such, like, get your priorities straight, man. But that is so true to the character, and it doesn't feel like annoying. Like sometimes in mysteries and thrillers, characters not having their priorities straight can really get on my nerves sometimes, because I'm just here like, that is not important right now. Your life is in danger. Come on, get a grip. But because Richard does such a good job of creating these characters and creating such clear images of who these people are, I was like, that, of course, that is exactly what is going through his mind right now, and I wouldn't expect anything less. But also, he still gets the job done. He's still got his priorities straight in actions when it matters. But he's just sat there thinking about the pub quiz, and I love it. I love it. I cannot wait for the next book in the series, and I don't think it's coming out till 2026. Guess I'm just gonna have to read the entirety of the Thursday Murder Club in the meantime. But this new favourite, like, is it presumptuous to call Richard Osman a new favourite author when I've only read one book of his? Probably. Am I still gonna do it? Yes. Yes, I am. He's a new favourite author. I don't care. I do not care. This is the third 5-star of the year, and I've only read 3 books this year. What is going on? I love it. Okay, I feel like I need to breathe because I've just like rambled and like word vomited at you. But I do think my next book is going to be A Fate Inked in Blood by Daniel L. Jensen. I didn't actually realise until I looked at the cover of this that this is the author of The Bridge Kingdom, which is a book that I've been interested in reading for years and I still haven't got to. So I think I'm going to pick this up tonight. I was considering reading Betting on You by Lynn Painter, and this is a book that I softy enough this It was some point in the last year, like I was reading it in my 3rd year of uni, I know that, and I soft DNF'd it because I just couldn't get into it. And I was thinking, in this video it'll be a great time to get to this book, and it'll be a great way to decide whether I'm going to continue reading Lynn Painter's books, or at least her YA books, or whether it's time to unhaul this and also the other YA I have by her. But I read the synopsis again, and it just wasn't calling to me at all, and not just in a like I'm not in the mood for it right now kind of way, in like a I have no interest in reading this book kind of way. So I think I'm gonna unhaul it. Guys, I might be unhauling a book before I've hauled one this year. Who am I? Who is she? Who is 2025 Sammy? What's going on? And I know when you're seeing this, you'll have already seen a haul from me this year. But that's because it's my birthday tomorrow. It's not books I'm buying. And I also haven't received them yet, so it still counts. This, I'm unhauling a book before I have even hauled one. She's a new person, what can I say? I got about halfway through A Fate Inked in Blood last night, and so far I am enjoying it. So we are following Freya, who at the start of the book is in a loveless marriage. You know, this is a world where a lot of women don't really have much choice, and it's more political and class-based and all that kind of stuff marriage, which is what happened here. The man she married has pretty high status, and marrying him meant providing for her family, but she is doing everything she can to avoid getting pregnant, and that angers her husband, and because of that he sort of betrays her to a Jarl, which from my understanding a Jarl is sort of like a lord of the area. Well, I don't know whether it's a town, a city, but she essentially gets sold to this Jarl by her husband because she has a goddess's blood, and what that means, that is in the synopsis, that's not a spoiler. I am enjoying it. I really like the love interest. However, I'm not really sure what the goal is. Obviously, I don't have a huge expanse of experience reading fantasy as a whole, but in what I have read, I always feel like the goal is pretty clear. And even if things later get revealed that actually who we thought we should have an alliance with, we shouldn't, at the time and in the moment, it feels clear what the goal is, if that makes sense. And I don't really know what the goal is here. Like, we've got our people that we're currently aligned with and currently fighting for, but this Jarl is not a nice man. Like, we shouldn't want him to be the ruler. He prioritises his own power and prowess over the lives of the people he is in charge of. So I know we shouldn't want him to win, but also the enemy, I'm sure there's information we don't know yet about the enemy that maybe suggests they're better than we currently think they are, but as of right now there's at least specific things mentioned where it doesn't sound like the enemy is the greatest either, and not just through misunderstanding, because the one person who would have the chance of knowing the truth about both sides is our love interest, and he doesn't seem to be aligned to either side, but he also doesn't seem to have his own mission in terms of getting Freya to come along with that. Like, he might be doing his own thing outside of what Freya knows, but he doesn't seem to be trying to get Freya to work on his side and anything like that. Like, I don't know what our goal is, because right now we don't really want anyone to win. So that is a bit confusing. There are also a few things that to me it's very clear that they're intentionally vaguely worded for Freya to misinterpret them in one specific way, and I imagine that is going to turn out to be a different meaning, but I don't know if that's just clear to me because I've seen it done before, or whether it's clear because it's not well disguised, if that makes sense. I'm not sure. So it will definitely depend on the second half, how it plays out, whether this gets a higher rating or like a more average rating. The other thing that is completely irrelevant to my enjoyment of this and whether it's a good book or not is the fact that I've only ever encountered Norse mythology when it comes to Marvel before, and so seeing the names that are mentioned in that, you know, Odin, Loki, Thor and Freya, it is just quite funny to me. And it's a little moment of like, I know who you are, but also the things I do know are probably not close to the actual mythology there at all. So that's just an interesting little tidbit. I am having a good time, but it could definitely still swing either way depending on how the second half plays out. Last night I finished A Fate Inked in Blood, and I think I'm giving it a 3.75 or 4 stars. I'm not fully settled on it yet. I did have a good time. I did enjoy it. I enjoy the mythology surrounding it. But for me, the two sort of big reveals at the end were incredibly obvious. I can't remember sort of how far through it was that I like knew these things were going to happen. One of them I definitely knew quite early on, and the other it was when a specific plot point happened, which I don't know, I can't remember how far into the book that was, but just to me personally it was incredibly obvious, and so the reveals didn't really have the payoff that they should have. I am hopeful that like the series will just continue to get better. With Akatar, for example, I think the first book is fine, but books 2 and 3, chef's kiss, beautiful, obsessed. I'm hoping this series will be one of those situations. Like I say, I did really enjoy it. Even before those reveals, I knew it wasn't going to be a 5-star, partially probably because I knew that I was going to be right about a reveal, but also just like the relationship dynamic between these two, it didn't feel quite true to me, quite genuine. And I came to the realisation that I think that's because he doesn't really open up to her like at all. Even in the moments where it comes across like he is opening up, it's still incredibly obvious that he's not like fully sharing everything with her, and he's not fully opening up. So to me that makes the relationship feel not as strong, because clearly there's still a barrier there. Like clearly there's not enough trust and connection with each other where you feel like you can fully open up. I do think that's something that will change in the next book, but for now I'm just not getting that same excitement about this couple that I did when I read, for example, Akatar. I hate to keep bringing Akatar up, I just at the moment don't have the hugest expanse of romantasy to compare to, or even the same feeling I got when I read Quicksilver at the start of this vlog. Like I say, I'm giving it a 3.75 or a 4. I still really enjoyed it. It's just that little bit that was missing to me, as well as certain reveals being really obvious to me. Obviously other readers might not see it coming, I don't know. It's just my personal experience, it was incredibly obvious. But like I said, I'm still excited to get to the second book. I think I will still try and read it fairly quickly after it comes out. I was planning on reading either I Was a Teenage Slasher or The Ministry of Time next, but I got How to End a Love Story for my birthday. This was in the romance category. It didn't make the top 10 in the romance category, but it won for debut. And so I'm thinking I really want to get to this, and then I read the synopsis and it's about screenwriters, which I just love the idea of. As I mentioned when I hauled this last week, I love anything that is related to the TV and film world in books, just because that is an area I would like to work in. But I was looking up the author and she is a screenwriter herself, so it's going to have that level of authenticity to it with their careers. Not only that, but she's the screenwriter for the Emily Henry adaptations, which obviously they've not come out yet, so I don't know. I could watch those films and be like, wow, this didn't translate at all. They took it and didn't adapt it very well. But I don't see that happening. And if she's been trusted to write the screenplay for Emily Henry's films, I love Emily Henry's books, I think I'm gonna enjoy her writing in novel form as well. Obviously there are differences between screenwriting and book writing, but it just made me so much more excited to get to this book, so I think I'm going to pick up this next. The last time you saw me I was talking about having finished A Fate Inked in Blood, and I have since finished another book and I haven't checked in with you. So I am sorry about that, but I have finished How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwong. I adored this. I'm giving it a 4.5 stars, and honestly the only reason it's not a 5 is that it didn't quite have that 5-star feeling to it. It has nothing to do with like, oh, it was missing this or that, like it just didn't quite have that feeling. The only thing that annoyed me in this book is that our main character Helen does go on a lot about how they can't be together, but you know what, it's a valid reason. It's a valid reason. It's not just like, oh, because like you won't want me. It's like, no, because some serious shit has gone on in our lives that would make it very difficult for us to have a relationship. So this follows Helen, who is a best-selling author of a YA, I think it's like a mystery series, like an academic setting mystery series is the vibe I get from the times it's mentioned. Her series is being adapted into a TV show, and one of the writers, in fact like the second in command writer on that show, is actually someone she went to high school with, except, and this isn't a spoiler, we're told about this on the first page. It's not in the synopsis, but I've heard other people use it as a selling point, so it's not a spoiler. But basically, when they were teenagers, Helen's younger sister decided to unalive herself by running in front of Grant, our male main character's car, and ever since her family have blamed him essentially. There wasn't anything he could have done. Legally, he's been cleared. Everyone who saw it agrees, like, he couldn't have done anything. But it obviously doesn't change the fact that her family associate him with that massive trauma in their lives. Obviously, from what I've just said, definitely check content warnings for this. There's an author's note at the front as well that does mention the main triggers in the book. When Helen first finds out that he's working on the show, she's obviously very annoyed about this and wants him to quit, but he's like, no, not happening. I need to work. I just found this to be such a beautiful love story. Like, obviously they both have extreme amounts of trauma from this same incident. When we first meet Grant, like, you kind of think, wow, he's so cruel, like, considering what he knows she's been through and the way he's acting about the fact that they're working together. He's so cruel, like, he's not being considerate of her feelings at all. And then we switch to his POV and we realise that's not the case at all. It's actually just how he's coming across because of the things that are going through his own head. It's just such a beautiful story, and while I don't have personal experience with any of the topics in here, and so I can't really comment from that point of view, I do think it was handled really well and really elegantly, and I would just highly recommend this to, like, anyone and everyone. Especially, I think this is going to be another book that I would recommend to, like, non-romance readers. So, like, Emily Henry and Abby Jimenez are two authors that if someone who doesn't typically read romance asks for a romance rec, I go straight to them because their books tend to have a bit more substance to them than just the romance plotline. It's the same with this. Like, so much of the story is about exploring that grief and that trauma and healing. Like, they're both in therapy and that's talked about a lot, and it's just such a beautiful story in my opinion. And then we've also got the fact that Helen is a first generation Chinese American. So her parents immigrated from China before she was born, and there's a lot of discussion on how that affects the way she grew up and the way she handles certain things, and how other people don't really understand if they've not got Asian parents. And there was definitely a moment that I actually personally connected to. She talks about how she isn't fluent in Cantonese and how that makes her feel in terms of being Asian enough based on a decision that she didn't make. It was a decision that was made for her before she was even born, and that's definitely something I resonate with, being mixed race and not seeing my Mauritian family a lot of the time. I wasn't raised bilingual either because my dad said there was no point, all our family also speak English. If I'm going to Mauritius, most people also speak English. He just felt that there was no need. But it's definitely something for me that makes me feel more disconnected from my heritage because I already don't look very mixed race, I'm aware of that. And then obviously I was born and raised in England, have only been to Mauritius once. It's just another element for me that makes me feel like I'm not Mauritian enough. So I definitely resonated with that, even though it's two completely different contexts to that. You know, Helen is fully Chinese in this, she just didn't grow up there, whereas I am half English, so there is obviously differences there, but it's just still something that I connected with personally. I did really enjoy this, and I mentioned in the last clip that the author is actually the screenwriter who is adapting Emily Henry's books, and that makes me so excited for those films to come out because I trust her so much with Emily's books. And there's actually a quote from Emily Henry on the cover as well, and she's mentioned in the acknowledgements. But yeah, I'm so excited now because I trust her writing so much. Another thing I wanted to mention actually is that this book is dual POV. Dual POV is one of my favourite things in romance. I love getting to see both sides of it. And this was done so well. So it's not dual POV in the sense that chapter 1 is from Helen's POV and then chapter 2 is Grant, and it goes back and forth, and each chapter is titled the person whose POV it is. It's not like that at all. We'll change mid-chapter all the time. There's no headings for we're now in this person's POV. It just, new paragraph starts, and sometimes with that new paragraph we've got a new POV. But not once was I confused as to whose POV we were in. It was just so clear whose POV we're in straight away, and that is something I really appreciate because I have read books before where it's not marked off when we're changing POV and it takes you a good couple pages to realise you've changed POV, and that's definitely not the case in this one. So that brings our total read for this video to 5 books, which is less than I was hoping to read, but oh well. So I'm just going to do a quick wrap up of everything we've read. We started off with Quicksilver by Callie Hart, absolutely loved this, gave it 5 stars. Then we had Funny Story by Emily Henry, also gave this 5 stars, also absolutely loved it. Then we had We Solve Murders by Richard Osman, also gave this 5 stars. I think this might be my favourite book of the video, I'm not sure. It's between this and Quicksilver. Then we did end our 5-star streak with A Fate Inked in Blood by Daniel L. Jensen, but it was still a 4 stars. And finally we're ending with How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwong, and I gave that 4.5 stars. So I think that brings my average to like 4.7 or something, which, what a great way to start off the year. What a great first reading month of the year. Let's hope we can keep this momentum up. It's not going to stay that high all year, I can tell you that, but hopefully this is a signal as to how we're going to go on and we're going to have a great reading year overall. If you got this far into the video, leave the clapboard emoji for a TV adaptation in the comments. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram, I do have a bookish Instagram that is always linked down below, along with all my other social medias, Goodreads, Storygraph, my personal Instagram. If I'm on it, it's linked down below. If you enjoyed, it would be much appreciated if you gave this video a like, and if you would like to see more content from me, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one. Bye!